Welcome to my last recap video of tonight's episode entitled The Jughead. So in the beginning of the episode you find out the beginning starts with a flashback from the present time, which is 3 years from the time that the people left the island. Penny gives birth to a son. You find out much later in the episode that Desmond and Penny decide to name him Charlie. Little baby Charlie. I wonder why they did that. Back on the island, the two groups that were running from the Flaming Arrows, remember, Sawyer and Juliet were separated from the rest of the group, and they were going to go meet up at the creek. But Sawyer and Juliet got captured by some army guys or something like that, and then Locke came and saved them, and then two of the army guys are still alive with them. The rest of the group, Miles and Faraday and Charlotte and some other people, they go to the creek, but then Miles looks down and sees that there's a tripwire and there's going to be like bombs or something like that. And he was like, I'm going to see how many people hit that tripwire. No. Some people get blown up, they get thrown into the water, and I'm assuming that they're all dead, except for Faraday, Miles, and Charlotte. So they get captured by more of the army guys that are on the island or whatever, and this woman with a gun comes up and asks who the leader is, and Miles is like, him, over there. Pointing at Faraday. And then she comes up to Faraday and is like, you just couldn't stay away, could you? What does that mean? I think Faraday's been on the island before, and not just because he's been time-shifting with these people. He's been there years back. Desmond is trying to find Faraday's mother at Oxford because Faraday told him to go find his mother, right? He's like, they're sailing on a boat, I guess, to go back to Great Britain. Anyways, they're sailing on the boat with their son, baby Charlie. Desmond says, you know, I'm only going to be a day. I'm going to find his mother, and then we'll be done with this and whatever. And Penny's like, okay, Des, fine. Just go. Abandon me again. The two men that are with Locke and Juliet and Sawyer, we find out, are others because they can speak Latin. Juliet recognizes that they were speaking to each other in Latin, and Juliet like, I got taught Latin by the others. They must be others. Oh my gosh, shock. Are we really that shocked? Not really. Okay. Miles, Charlotte, and Faraday get taken to a village. Richard walks up and is like, so I guess you want your bomb back, or you're here for your bomb, or something like that. We don't know anything about a bomb just yet, although the show is The Bomb. Back in the real world, Desmond is in Oxford, and he's trying to find Faraday or his mother, and the woman that he's asking at Oxford is like, computer says no Faraday here. He's like, okay, well, that's crazy. I know that, I came and visited him at Oxford. So he remembers that Faraday had a lab above the physics department, goes wandering on the campus, finds the physics department, goes in there, breaks into where he knows that the laboratory is, finds that the laboratory is all shut down and dark and whatever, there's sheets all over everything. The janitor comes in and is like, oi, what are you doing in here? He finds out from the janitor that I guess Faraday got dismissed. It's not really clear. And the reason that he isn't there anymore is because he did something to some poor girl. Who could that be? We have no idea yet. Back on the island, Faraday is telling Miles and Charlotte, these people think that we're with the American government or military, and as long as we keep them believing that, we'll probably be okay. I don't understand, like, why don't they just shoot them? I don't understand. Oh, you're from the government? Let's not kill you. Richard comes in and he's like, okay, so what are we going to do with you? And he's like, okay, you said something about a bomb. So if you have a bomb, I'm assuming that from the irradiation burns on that guy's hands, the casing must be compromised, and I need to go and defuse it. Richard's like, I don't think so. Why am I going to let you? How do I know that you're not on some sort of a suicide mission? He's like, because I love the redhead, okay? I would never do anything to harm her. Charlotte's over on the side like, just shoot me now. So he admits to Richard that he's in love with Charlotte, and that convinces Richard to let him defuse the bomb. The bomb is a hydrogen bomb. It is capable of destroying the entire island. I'm assuming, like, blow it up, which doesn't really make sense for an island that can move. Back with Juliet and Sawyer and Locke. They're, like, taking them through the jungle or whatever, and she knows that they can speak Latin, and I forget why, but they stop, and then she's like, okay, well, you speak Latin, you know the others, why don't you take us to your camp? So she convinces one of the soldiers in Latin to take them to her camp. And he's like, okay, fine. Because she's like, no one else has to die. And before he can actually tell them which way they need to go, the other soldier that was with them, like all captive and whatever, runs over and breaks the guy's neck and then runs off. And Sawyer's like, shoot the motherfucker, shoot him. And Locke's like, I can't. He's one of my people. I think it was because the guy that was running away reminded him of Boone, and he's sad that he doesn't have his younger playmate or whatever it is. Back in the real world, Desmond finds out that this girl's name that Faraday had did something to, I guess, was named Teresa, and went to go find her, and he tracks her down in this apartment, and she's like this invalid, and doesn't understand why she's an invalid, right? There's like medical people helping her like survive, but she's like laying in a bed. The woman that let Desmond into the house said, you know, well, Faraday abandoned her. We don't know why. Probably because the bitch is fucking crazy. He finds out from the woman that Charles Widmore has been funding Faraday's work, and then when he left, he felt responsible, I guess, for taking care of Teresa because, you know, the work went badly or something like that. And Desmond gets it in his mind, I'm going to go frickin' hunt down Charles Widmore. Back on the island, boy, this is going back and forth and back and forth. Charlotte goes to Faraday and was like, please tell me you don't love me, because that's kind of disgusting. And Faraday's like, it's true. It's true. Faraday gets led out of their little tent and off to go defuse the bomb. Now, when the guy who ran away from Locke and Juliet, you know, like ran, they followed him to like the edge of where the village was. And Locke says, I'm going to go down and talk to Richard. And Juliet and Sawyer are like, cool, that'll give us a little moment here in the bushes. No, they decide that they're going to go save Faraday because they see him being led out into the jungle by a woman with a gun, and they think that he's going to be killed. Faraday goes to try and look at the bomb and whatever, and he's like, we have to bury it. And the woman's like, why? And he's like, you just trust me, we have to bury it. We have to find lead or concrete or something like that and bury it, and it'll all be fine. Juliet and Sawyer come up behind her, and, you know, Sawyer's got a gun. Tells, you know, oh, this woman's name is Ellie. He's like, drop the gun, bitch. Drop it like a hot potato. She does, and that's that. Locke goes into the village and asks to speak with Richard. Richard comes out and is like, who are you? And he's like, I'm John Locke. He's like, is that supposed to mean something to me? He's like, well, yeah, Jacob sent me. And then Richard's like, okay, there's some freaky stuff going on this island. While he was talking to Richard, I should mention that there was a guy that was like had a gun on Locke, and Richard goes over to that guy and says, put the gun down. And he's like, why? He's like, just put the gun down, Widmore. And you find out that the guy that had the gun pointed at Locke is actually Charles Widmore in his younger self on the island. Crazy. Back in the real world, Desmond goes to Widmore's office and says, I just need some information. You'll never see me again. Widmore gives him the information. The information that he wanted was he wanted to know how to find Faraday's mother. And he says, well, she's in L.A. You got to go there. Everyone travels there. It's great. And then he was like, you know, okay, I know that you're with my daughter, and then once you find out what you need from this woman, I want you to go back into hiding wherever it was, because I don't want my daughter in danger. He goes back to the boat and lies to Penny and says, oh, like the woman's dead or something like that. She's like, why are you lying to me? And he's like, I don't know, Penny. She knows that he's lying to her, and then she finally agrees that, okay, she'll go with him to go look for this woman in L.A., because she's a crazy woman, I guess, because she doesn't want to be apart from him, and get a call and be like, meet me at Christmas. Locke this is back on the island. He's begging Richard to find out, how do we get off the island? He needs to get off the island to save it or whatever. And Richard doesn't want to tell him. And then, like, the sky starts to, you know, get that, or we hear some weird sound, and he knows that the sky's going to flash and he's going to, like, jump through time again. And he wants to get the knowledge of how to get off the island from Richard, but they shift. So they shift, and Locke, Sawyer, Juliet, Faraday, Charlotte, and Miles are in the same place, but the village isn't there anymore. So they're in another time period. You know, everyone's like, ooh, okay, thank God that's over. Ooh, okay, well, that's fine. Charlotte's like, I have a problem. I'm going to die. And then she, like, has, you know, like, she, like, starts coughing up blood and falls on the ground, and yay, Charlotte is dying. Faraday's very upset. And that's that. If you're lost, so am I.